and welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we are introducing our brand new die set, Party Balloons. This set is so much fun because you get so many different sizes of balloons. So you can see here that you get 3 of this kind of circular balloon, and then you also get 3 of the kind of standard balloon shape. And you can see how cool these look when they're cut out. I just love them. And then here you can see the other shape, and I love how you can mix and match the 2 shapes too. And then we also have a star balloon and these great little balloon strings and a heart-shaped balloon too. So there's so many different looks you can get from this one die set. We also have the little shine marks as a die. So you can see there I cut them out of white cardstock. And next you can see how these pieces all layer together. So you can take those balloon strings and put them underneath any of the balloons. I think it's such a cute look. And then you can also take those little shine marks and layer them on top of the balloons. And it really gives it this fun kind of cartoony look. So there you can see all 3 sizes of shine marks. And then the other way to use the die is to actually cut out the negative of the shine mark. So I'm putting it there and holding it in place with some low tack tape. I ran it through my die cut machine and you can see that really cool look there. And I love putting white cardstock behind it. So you can kind of see you can get 2 looks from that same exact shine mark die. And then you can see how you can take the shine mark and put it on all of the other shapes too. So it's just really fun looks, and it adds that little extra something to the die cuts. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the medium-sized shine mark to my little medium-sized balloon there, and that way they'll match because I want to make a super simple card with these balloons. So I love that you can get simple cards or super complicated cards out of them, and so this one I wanted to make it a quick one of those, oops, I forgot to make a birthday card, let me do one real quick that still looks awesome. So here I'm using an anti-static tool on my cardstock, and I'm going to stamp this sentiment from Scripty Sayings in some Versamark ink, which is super sticky ink. I'm adding some white heat embossing powder, and then I'm going to go ahead and heat it up with my heat tool to get a nice bright white sentiment that's going to go really well with the shine marks because I'm going to put some white cardstock behind them. So I'm just cutting up some scrap piece of cardstock. I always save those little pieces for things like this. I'll put a little bit of glue just around that die cut hole, and then I can just layer those little pieces of cardstock right behind it, and it's going to give it a really cool look. So while those are drying, I'm going to go ahead and score a standard size card base of 5.5 by 4.25. And then I'll layer some gray cardstock on top to go with those gray balloon strings. And next I wanted to add a little bit more white because I have the white sentiment and the white little shine marks on the balloon. So I thought a nice thin white border around my turquoise piece would really set it off. And now I can use some foam adhesive to pop my balloons up. Since the card is so simple, foam adhesive really does give it that extra pizzazz. And now I can layer my balloon strings and kind of play around with the placement of my balloons and where I'd like them to be. I just love how this is looking. And then to glue these little thin strings down, I just use drops of glue from the tip of my little glue bottle here, and then I lay it right down on the card. And if you just give it some time to dry, it's going to look really good. And so I can do the same thing with the second string. And now I'm just going to add some foam adhesive to the back of my whole panel, once again to give it that extra dimension. And then here you can see how my simple 10-minute card turned out. I just love having cards like this in my arsenal so I can make a ton of them all at once if I wanted. Now I thought it would be fun to use these balloons with a critter. So I'm stamping out the snail from Gleeful Gardens, and I'll link to the Gleeful Gardens video so you can see how I colored him. And then I'm going to go ahead and do some watercoloring with one of our new ink pads. So this is the Wild Rose ink pad, and I'm just going to push that right onto my craft mat there. It's just a nice slick surface. And I'm spraying some Perfect Pearls water. You could just use normal water, but I thought a little pearlized accent would look really nice. So I'm just going to go ahead and watercolor onto my watercolor cardstock right here. And I'm just bringing the color on and waiting until I get that color consistency that I'd really like. So I want it a little bit darker on the bottom, a little bit lighter on top. And I'm making sure that I have enough of my cardstock covered so that I can die cut it with that heart-shaped balloon. And so I just love that look. I'm just brushing a little bit more of that pearlized water on top, and I think it's so pretty, and I love that you can watercolor with our new inks. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and start working on my card base. So now I'm going to use one of the stitched rectangles to cut a turquoise piece and then a green piece. And from that little green bottom piece, I'm going to use my grassy border die. I really wanted the grass part to also have the stitch detail, so that's why I cut with the rectangle first and then the grassy border later. And I'm going to white heat emboss again. Since I had those tools out from my other card, I figured why not, and it's such a pretty look. So I'm stamping with that sticky Versamark ink again, adding my white heat embossing powder, and then I can use my heat tool to heat it up and get a nice bold sentiment, and that sentiment is from our set So Much to Say. So now that my cardstock has dried, I can go ahead and die cut my balloon, and I love how gorgeous that looks. Now I didn't want the balloon to get lost on my colored cardstock, so I'm using a little foam dauber here, and I'm just adding a little bit of ink to the edges. You can see I'm doing really light touches because I just want just a little bit of definition on the edge, but I don't want to take away from the watercolor look either. So I just took that little foam thing there, trying to get it into the tip there of the heart, and I'm just going to keep going around the edges until I get a nice definition around the edge, just to give it that extra pop. Now, one thing I love about these balloons is that they're perfect for all of our critters, so I can't wait to see what kind of cute scenes you guys are going to come up with. But I thought it would be adorable to have this snail flying through the air with the balloon on top. So I took some lawn trimmings there and just tied it around with a double knot at top and left a big long string hanging off the edge so that I can decide exactly where my snail is going to go. Now I wanted to have a taller card to give the illusion of the balloon really going up in the air. So what I'm doing is adhering down that grass piece lower down on the card. So you'll see there when I turn it around, it's hanging off the edge, and now it looks like I have a really long stitch rectangle. And I'm just going to put some foam adhesive on the back there so that the whole thing has a nice flat edge. And then I can put some foam adhesive on the back of my snail. And then I just put a little piece of tape there to hold that string in place, and some more foam adhesive, and on the heart I'm actually going to double up on the foam adhesive just to give more of that illusion of the balloon flying away. And then I'll just center that right in the middle of the card. Next, I want to create a stitched rectangle as the card base for the card. Now, to be able to get a stitched rectangle border that's also that long, I'm going to have to do some little die cutting magic here. So I'm just going to go ahead and die cut the very top of this rectangle. So I ran it through my die cut machine just right on the edge of that cutting plate, and you can see that only the very top cut. And so I'm just going to cut those little pieces off there, off the edge. And my rectangle ended up being 5 5/8 inches long when I extended it with the grass. So I'm going to make a mark with my ruler at 5 5/8 inches so I know how long this rectangle is going to be, and we're going to do some more partial die cutting. So I'm just making a line as to where my original cut was, and I'm going to line that die up with that mark I made at 5 5/8. Hold it in place with a ton of tape, and then now those marks that I made where my original die cut ended, that's where I'm going to line it up on my plate so that only the part I want to cut is on the plate, and then the other part's going to hang off, and so it won't be cut. So I'm going to be able to fake this way. You'll see how it's hanging off the edge, a long die cut. So as you can see, it worked pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's pretty cool. And so you'll see it layers right on top, and we were able to get kind of this fake look. And to just fill in some little stitch marks that didn't get cut, I'm just using my X-Acto knife, and no one's ever going to be able to tell, and it's going to make it look perfect. So now I can layer that piece on and get 2 stitched layers. And then I can layer my whole piece onto my card base. And I know it's kind of crazy, but I really did want that long stitch rectangle around the edge, and I actually had a lot of fun doing some cool die cutting. And now for my last card, I wanted to show you how a lot of our alphabet dies actually fit inside these balloons, which I think is really fun to be able to create a saying inside these adorable balloons. So I decided to use our Finley's ABCs die set, and I'm going to spell out the word smile with this nice rainbow palette here using the medium size round balloon. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut the 5 balloons in the 5 colors. And then I can take my Finley's ABCs letters, put them in the center of the balloons, and use some low tack tape, I'm using Post-it note tape here, to hold those letters in place. And once they're all in place, I can put them on my die cutting machine little setup here and run it through the machine. and you're going to get these cute negative little letters there, and the other letters which you could use for a different card later on. Then I went ahead and cut 5 white balloons because I'm going to layer those behind the letters. So I'm going to go ahead and just add some liquid glue there. That way I have a little wiggle room before it dries to really perfectly line up these balloons so that you only see the white coming through where the letter has been die cut out. And I just love this look. I think it's really bold and it could be fun in a lot of different color palettes with different words and sayings. And so now we have smile all spelled out. So I've gone ahead and cut a stitched rectangle, and I'm going to stamp some balloon strings, and I'm just making a mark at the end of all the balloons so I know where to stamp those strings. I also want to make sure that my string doesn't go over the stitched part of the rectangle, so I'm just layering some tape on top there, that's the Post-it note tape again, to make sure that I protect that stitched edge. And now I'm using the scripty sayings. I'm just going to use the part that looks like a balloon string. So I just love this look. I'm stamping in the new Hippo ink, and I'm going to stamp right in the middle of all of those little tick marks. And you can see when I remove my tape that the stitched edge has been protected too. And now I can go ahead and erase those little light pencil marks that just gave me a nice guide as to where to put my strings. And now the rest of the card assembly is really easy. I've got some foam adhesive on the back of all my balloons, and I can just layer them right on top of those balloon strings. And I think it's just such a cute look. And then my last little E there. And then I wanted to have a white border around the card. So I'm going to go ahead and use some foam adhesive and just adhere that onto a plain white card base. And that way the colors are just going to really stand out and pop. And so that's it. Another fun look with the same exact die set. I just love it, and I love that there's so many creative ways to use it, and I cannot wait to see what you guys do with them. So right here, I've got my super simple card, I've got my fun card involving the alphabet dies, and also involving our fun critters. So this is Party Balloons. I love all of those fun shapes and this awesome little shine mark that you can add to the balloons. I love that you can make simple cards or even involve some previous dies like Finley's ABCs. You can do fun watercoloring and create cute scenes with your critters, and I just cannot wait to see what you guys are going to make because I know it's going to be awesome. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye!